What do Jesus, the Buddha, and the Hindu god Krishna all have in common?
It sounds like the setup for a pretty wild joke, but the answer is actually part of a story that humanity has been telling for thousands of years, across nearly every continent and culture.
It's the story of a world-changing hero whose origin is anything but ordinary. From a dream of a white elephant in ancient Nepal to a god born in a prison, tales of miraculous conceptions are shockingly widespread.
Now, we often hear the term virgin birth, but that's just one specific flavor of a much bigger phenomenon.
We're talking about a deep, recurring pattern woven into the fabric of human mythology. For millennia, we have instinctively reached for the supernatural to explain the origins of figures who changed the world. In this video, we'll uncover these surprising patterns and explore the profound reasons why humanity keeps telling this same incredible story. We aren't here to prove or disprove any single belief, but to understand a universal impulse, a shared language of the miraculous that connects us all.
To see just how deep this pattern runs, we have to start with the most familiar example in the Western world, the one that sets the baseline for our comparison, the birth of Jesus of Nazareth.
Even if you think you know this story, let's look at it like a mythographer, someone who studies the structure of stories themselves. What we find are key ingredients that will pop up again and again across the globe. The story begins not with a miracle, but with a world in crisis. First century Judea is a land under Roman occupation.
There's a powerful sense of desperation, a longing for a prophesied Messiah who will deliver his people.
This context of crisis is a crucial first element. Great heroes aren't born into quiet times.
They're born into a world that needs saving.
Into this tense landscape steps a young woman named Mary. According to the Gospel of Luke, she's visited by the angel Gabriel, a messenger from God, who tells her that she, a virgin, will conceive a son. The mechanics are described in spiritual terms. The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. This idea of a divine, non-physical conception that emphasizes the mother's purity is a key element in this specific story. This announcement is followed by immediate, earthly danger. The local ruler, King Herod, hears whispers of a newborn, king of the Jews, from visiting Magi, wise men guided by a miraculous star. Seeing this child as a threat to his throne, Herod orders the slaughter of all infant boys in Bethlehem.
This forces the Holy Family to flee as refugees into Egypt. So here we have it, the complete pattern laid bare, a world in crisis awaiting a savior, a divine prophecy or announcement, a miraculous conception, celestial signs like a star,
an earthly threat from a ruler who sees the child as a danger.
These 5 elements create a powerful narrative template. They work together to say one thing: this child is different. His authority comes from somewhere else entirely, and his arrival means the old order is about to be overturned. Keep this pattern in mind, because we're about to see it reappear in the most astonishing places. Now, let's rewind the clock about 500 years and travel east to what is now Nepal.
Here, we find the story of Siddhartha Gautama, the man who would become the Buddha, the awakened one, and while his story is unique, it echoes the pattern we just established. The story centers on his mother, Queen Mahamaya, who was married to King Suddhodana. One night, she has a vivid dream where she's carried to the Himalayas by angels.
There, a magnificent white elephant, a symbol of majesty in India, circles her 3 times before gently entering her right side.
This was no ordinary dream. The king's court sages interpreted it unanimously. The queen had conceived a child destined for one of 2 paths. He would either be a great king who would rule the world, or he would renounce it all and become a great spiritual leader, a Buddha. So, check number 2. We have the prophecy before he's even born. The conception itself is clearly miraculous. The dream of the white elephant signifies a pure divine event, separate from ordinary human life. The text emphasized that Queen Maya's 10-month pregnancy was free of any pain or impurity.
When the time for the birth came, she stopped to rest in the Lumbini gardens.
As she held the branch of a sal tree, the child was born, emerging painlessly from her right side, the very side the elephant had entered in her dream. The legends say the infant Siddhartha immediately stood, took 7 steps, and a lotus flower bloomed on the ground with each step.
He then declared, "I am chief of the world."
This is the last birth.
So let's check our pattern.
A prophecy of greatness. Check.
A miraculous, divinely orchestrated conception.
Check.
Immediate signs of the child's divine status. A huge check.
The details are different: a dream of an elephant instead of a visit from an angel, but the core message is strikingly similar. This is not the arrival of just another man. This is the dawn of a new consciousness on Earth.
Now we journey to a story crackling with tension, tyranny, and a desperate and miraculous escape.
This is the birth of Lord Krishna, one of Hinduism's most beloved deities.
His story isn't a virgin birth at all, in fact. His mother, Devaki, was married and Krishna was her 8th child. But his birth fits our pattern of extraordinary origins in even more dramatic ways.
The story begins, once again, with a world in crisis. The land is crushed by a brutal tyrant, King Kansa.
The prophecy arrives with a bang.
Kansa is driving the chariot for his sister, Devaki, on her wedding day when a voice thunders from the heavens. "O foolish Kansa, the 8th son of this very sister, Devaki, will be your destroyer." Kansa's reaction perfectly illustrates our earthly threat element.
He immediately tries to kill his sister, but her new husband, Vasudeva, makes a desperate bargain. He promises to hand over every child they have.
Kansa agrees, throwing them both into prison.
He then proceeds to murder their first 6 infants.
A 7th is magically saved, transferred from Devaki's womb to another.
This brings us to the 8th pregnancy. On a dark and stormy night, Devaki gives birth to Krishna. At that moment, a divine light fills the cell. The infant is revealed as a manifestation of the god Vishnu, with 4 arms, holding his divine emblems.
Immediately, the miracles kick in.
A voice instructs Vasudeva to take the child across the Yamuna river and swap him with a newborn baby girl in the village of Gokul.
The guards fall into a magical sleep, the chains fall off, and the locked prison doors swing open.
As Vasudeva carries the infant into the raging storm, the turbulent river parts to let him pass, while a giant serpent rises from the water to shield the baby from the rain. He swaps the infants and returns to the prison.
When Kansa hears the baby cry, he seizes the girl to kill her, but she flies from his hands, transforms into the goddess Durga, and issues a final warning. "You fool!
The one who is destined to kill you has already been born and is safe." Crisis, prophecy, miraculous birth, divine signs, and a deadly threat.
The story of Krishna is a masterclass in our narrative pattern, establishing him as a god in human form, born to restore righteousness to the world.
Our theme of a divine child threatened by earthly powers now takes us to ancient Persia with the birth of Zoroaster, the prophet of Zoroastrianism.
While the oldest texts don't mention a virgin birth, later legends about his origin are rich with familiar motifs. One of the most famous legends says his mother was a young woman who conceived not through a physical act, but through a shaft of divine light.
Another version says the prophet's essence entered her when she drank from a sacred halma plant mixed with milk. Both versions establish a conception that is sacred and divinely orchestrated.
Even before the birth, the legends say a brilliant light emanated from his mother, a clear sign that the child within her was no ordinary mortal. But where there's divine light, earthly jealousy often follows. A local ruler and his priests saw this impending birth as a dire threat to their power. Setting up our classic earthly threat upon his birth, Zoroaster did something amazing. Instead of crying, he laughed. It was a laugh that shook the forces of darkness, signaling the arrival of a wisdom they could not corrupt. The evil ruler immediately tried to extinguish this new light.
First, they threw the baby into a bonfire, but the embers turned cool, and he slept peacefully.
Next, they laid him in the path of a stampede of cattle, but the led ox stood protectively over him. They tried again with horses, with the same result. Finally, they threw him into the den of a hungry she-wolf. Instead of eating him, the wolf nursed him as one of her own. In every instance, the infant is saved, proving his special status.
We have the miraculous conception, the celestial sign of his mother's glow, the threat from a corrupt ruling class, and repeated, miraculous demonstrations of divine protection.
The story insists that a true spiritual revolution cannot be stopped by mortal force. So far, we've seen how stories use divine intervention to mark a hero's birth. But the core pattern is broader than just purity or a single type of miracle. At its heart, it's about having extraordinary origins that set the hero apart.
To see this, let's look at the powerhouses of the ancient world, Greece and China. Let's start with ancient Greece, whose myths are full of children of gods and mortals.
The birth of Athena, goddess of wisdom, is one of the strangest.
She has no mother at all.
The story goes that Zeus swallowed his first wife, Metis, who was pregnant, to prevent a prophecy that her child would overthrow him.
Later, Zeus developed a cosmic headache. Hephaestus cracked his head open with an axe, and out sprang Athena, fully grown and in armor. This isn't a virgin birth. It's a divine-only birth from pure intellect, bypassing biology entirely. A different, but equally strange, Greek story is that of the hero Perseus. An oracle told a king he would be killed by his grandson.
So, he locked his daughter, Dana, in an underground bronze chamber.
But you can't keep a god out. Zeus transformed himself into a shower of golden rain, which streamed through the roof of her cell and impregnated her.
The result was Perseus. Here, the conception is undeniably miraculous and supernatural, designed to bypass an impossible mortal barrier.
Now, let's cross a continent to Imperial China, where these myths were used to legitimize entire dynasties. The legendary Yellow Emperor, an ancestor of all Han Chinese, has a suitably epic origin. His mother was walking in the countryside when she saw a flash of lightning from the Big Dipper and, in that moment, conceived. The father wasn't a man, but the raw power of the heavens.
This theme continues with Huji, the mythical ancestor of the Zhou dynasty.
His mother became pregnant after she stepped into a giant footprint left by the supreme sky god.
Horrified, she tried to abandon the infant, but each time, he was miraculously protected by animals and birds, proving he was under heaven's protection. From Athena born of a headache to Perseus conceived by golden rain, and the Yellow Emperor born of lightning, these stories aren't identical, but they share a purpose.
They are narrative strategies for establishing legitimacy by severing the link to ordinary human fatherhood and forging a direct bond with the divine. So we've traveled from Palestine to Persia, from the Himalayas to ancient Greece and China. We've seen a pattern of miraculous origins repeat with uncanny consistency.
The question is, why? Why does this specific story type appear in so many disconnected cultures? The first and most pragmatic reason is legitimacy and authority.
In a world governed by bloodlines, how do you establish a leader whose authority tops all others?
You give them a divine parent.
A hero born of a god or through a miracle has a mandate from heaven itself. Their right to rule isn't political.
It's a cosmic fact.
It's the ultimate trump card.
The second reason is deeply symbolic.
The birth represents a new beginning. These heroes don't just show up.
They kick off a new era.
The unusual nature of their conception signifies a radical break from the past.
The old rules, biological and social, no longer apply. The miracle of their origin becomes the founding miracle of the new world they're here to create.
Third, there's the psychology of the extraordinary. Humans seem wired to seek supernatural explanations for superhuman events.
When we see someone whose wisdom or impact seems to defy normal limits, we want a cause that feels equal to the effect.
It's possible that stories that began as metaphors like a person being divinely inspired were, over generations of retelling, literalized into a miraculous birth. For an extraordinary life, an extraordinary birth is the most satisfying explanation. Finally, especially in stories that do emphasize a virgin birth like the Christian narrative, there is the powerful theme of spirit over flesh. By removing physical passion from the act of creation, the myth elevates the hero and their message onto a purely spiritual plane. Their existence is a product of immaculate divine will, not fallible human desire.
This imbues the hero with an inherent moral authority, untainted by the world's base instincts.
These forces combine to create a narrative so powerful it's been reinvented time and again.
It is humanity's go-to story for its most important figures. So, what have we found?
From a prison in Mithura to a bronze tower in Argos, from a dream of an elephant to a flash of lightning, it's clear the miraculous birth story doesn't belong to any one culture or religion.
It's a universal human archetype. These stories are far more than just ancient fables.
They are sophisticated narrative tools, designed to answer some of our biggest questions about power, destiny, and our place in the cosmos. They are our ancestors' way of saying, this person mattered.
Their arrival changed everything.
They didn't just come from our world, they came to it, and we were never the same.
Rather than seeing them as simple copies, we can view them as proof of a shared psychological blueprint for how our species makes sense of the exceptional people who shape our history.
It reveals a deep human need to believe that true greatness has a source that is, in a word, miraculous. If you found this exploration fascinating, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the stories that shape our world. And let us know in the comments which myth surprised you the most.
We read every single one. Thanks for watching.